You're listening to a weekly podcast made by Miami Dolphin fans for Miami Dolphin fans. Your source for entertaining Dolphin news, insight, and general conversation. Here's your host, Michael Fink.
Hey everyone, this is Mike. The Finfans podcast is part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. All right, it's Tuesday night, and I'm here with Jim Johnson.
Hey everybody.
And Kirk Marks.
Good evening, Finfans.
It's another week, guys. Did you have a good one?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It's been pretty good weather here for all things considered here at the end of February and the beginning of March. It's been pretty mild, so I've been enjoying that.
Yeah, I've had a good week too. Weather-wise, basically the same thing. Really enjoying the fact that I don't want to jinx us or anything, but we really haven't had a winter.
Yeah,
haven't had any snow.
Yeah, you're so up north with me. You're in New Jersey, aren't you now, Kirk?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm up here in Rhode Island, so Mike is the only guy that's enjoying the Florida weather.
Well, the Florida weather has been probably similar to your guys' weather if you had about 20 degrees. You know, it's hot one day, it's cold the next. It's been weird. But we had a real nice, cool weekend. It was very pleasurable. We had company over and had a real good time. So tonight we're going to talk about free agency again. We'll cover quarterbacks and wide receivers. Before we do, though, I've got a question I want to ask you guys. One of the members on the page asked me to ask you, what was the dumbest thing you ever did after a Dolphin win or loss? I'll throw that to you, Kirk, first.
The dumbest thing I ever did after a Dolphin win was we were watching the Eagles game. We were having a party at our house, and after they won, we had sort of like low ceilings, and I grabbed my wife and I threw her up into the air, and she hit her head on the wall.
Oh, no.
I almost knocked her out. So that's about the dumbest thing I ever did. The only good thing we won, so she was happy, and she let me get away with it without...
You're still married, so it couldn't have been too bad.
Exactly.
Did you have to go to the emergency room or anything?
No.
No.
Luckily, I wasn't strong enough to put her through the wall.
There you go. Well, I didn't. There was no bodily harm in mine. Mine was, after beating the Bears on Monday night, we continued down that season, and then we lost an ugly, ugly game to the Patriots at the end of the year.
We remember, Jim.
Yeah, and I got to say, I put my foot right through my bedroom door. I was so angry, and it took me like 2 minutes to get my foot out of the hollow core door because it was like Chinese fingers. And I can still remember trying to take my shoelaces out so I could just slip my foot out of my shoe to get it out of the door. So that would have to be my silliest thing anyway.
Then it cost you a door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, doors aren't too bad.
Yeah, it was just a cheesy hollow core. It wasn't too bad.
Well, the dumbest thing I did, and there's a backstory here. We went to the Super Bowl in '84, and I had the opportunity through the Dolphins to get tickets, and I did. I got 2 seats. I surprised my wife. She didn't know we were going. And I bought a travel package and everything else, and, laid down some money. And my reasoning to her that I gave her for us going was, look, it's the Super Bowl. We never know when they'll get back. And I'm still waiting.
Uh-huh.
I think I jinxed them.
Damn you, Fink.
I think
you
I
got
did.
Some nerve, Mike.
So it's all my fault. These 30 years of futility, you just blame me. It's, I did it. So anyway, that's probably the dumbest thing I said or did or anything else after, a win. That, and I had to sit through a crappy Super Bowl that really wasn't a whole lot of fun. That's all I got there. We're going to look at quarterbacks. Do you guys think there's any chance that they're going to look for a free agent quarterback? Because I don't. I wonder what you guys think.
Well, I got to tell you, we put a little research into these podcasts, and I was looking at who would I want to sign as a quarterback, and I was just like, they're either off the charts money-wise or a guy I don't have any use to have. So, take this whole thing with a grain of salt because I'm not thinking that we're looking at any of these guys seriously.
I don't see any reason for them to go out there and get any of these free agent quarterbacks because I know that we're probably going to draft one. And right now we have 2 quarterbacks there, relatively cheap. And when we draft a quarterback this year, if we do, we're going to have that open window where we can sign other people and get depth on the team. If we go and take like a Tom Brady or a Rivers or one of those guys and they're going to demand all that money, we're basically closing that window on ourselves. So
yeah,
I don't.
To me, it makes no sense because you've already given Fitzpatrick a guarantee. So most of his salary is guaranteed, and then on top of that, you're going to have to shell out at least $20 million, right? I mean, we can agree on that. And if you're going to do that, then that's what, 25% of your available cap money. So you're not really building for the future. You're trying to win now under that scenario. And I don't know that would be smart. I think that money is better spent pulling in, second tier free agents and trying to have them grow with the team.
I agree.
Yeah, at the position we're in, it just doesn't make sense to bring in one of those veteran guys. There's all that Tom Brady scuttlebutt we hear about going to Miami. It just doesn't make sense. He's an old quarterback, mind you, a very talented guy and all that jazz, but the money doesn't fit the program, and we're not going to win now. So it's futile to do that and you might as well set it on fire and get some heat out of the money rather than pay for a guy that's not going to get anything done. So. Yeah,
I just don't think it fits. I just don't think it fits. If we had an established offensive line, and then maybe I could see, them doing something like that. But, like Ross said, why would Brady want to come here? And I think that says it all.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense no matter how you look at it. From any angle that you look at it, it doesn't make sense.
So let's talk about Tua Tagovailoa for a minute.
That's my subject.
Is it me, or are people just going nuts with all the hate and I don't want the guy and he's going to be injured the minute he steps on the field and all this other nonsense? Don't people understand that the doctors are going to have to look at him and test him, and they will image him inside and out? I mean, they're going to know what they're getting if they do decide to get him. They're not going to take a guy who's going to fall apart the minute he walks on the field. Now, like I said to somebody else today, quarterbacks do get hurt. That's part of the game. It happens. If you'd be surprised the number of times it happens. I listed to him, going back a little bit, Joe Montana, he missed like 20% of his starts, and Steve Young missed close to 20% of his starts. Guys get hurt. And now they've limited the contact a little more today than they did back then. But I think, last year Roethlisberger missed, most of the season, if not all of it. And, there were other guys that went down as well. It's the nature of the position. You've got guys running at you full speed. You're standing still. If they hit you wrong, your knee's going to go. It just happens. And, with Tua, it's his hip. But I think that if the surgeon did his job correctly, that bone should be healed. And he should be able to, resume his movement. And we'll find out shortly, I guess, next week, the 9th. So, we'll see. But the team is not going to invest all that time, money, and resources into a guy that they feel like is going to be fragile.
Yeah. When you read all of these articles, the Dolphins have been connected to Tua since, the beginning of last season, really, tank for Tua and all this. So the connection is like already there and made. And a lot of the mock drafts have the Dolphins taking him. But when you read these articles, there's like a negative vibe to him, like he's already a proven failure rather than, the star that he was in college. Yes, he had a serious injury. Yes, it should be a concern, but we shouldn't be writing the poor kid off already. I mean, let's give all of the NFL scouts, the doctors, and everybody involved a shot at this, because, we passed on Drew Brees because his shoulder was no good and he'd never going to amount to anything in the NFL. So, those type of decisions can bite you in the wrong way. So you got to look at this objectively and don't condemn the guy before you even have all the information.
The funny thing also is that everybody seems to think that they do have the information.
Well,
that
that's just it.
They already know.
They already know he's going to be broken in 2 games time. So
yes, there's an awful lot of fan experts.
Exactly, and they know everything. They know where he's going in the draft.
Right.
They know what quarterbacks they'd rather take than him. That if he does come back healthy, these other quarterbacks are nowhere near in the conversation with Tua if he comes back healthy.
Well, not with what we know now, but this is not an exact science. So I can't tell you I know Tua is going to be better than any of the other quarterbacks. But if you look at his collegiate career, the guy was a winner, plain and simple. He was as accurate as anybody could be. So, it is what it is. But I just think that people just go off the deep end one way or the other. I mean, if they don't take Tua, I'm not going to be disappointed. If they take Tua, I'm not going to be disappointed. I just want them to get the guy they want. And if that guy is Tua, then that's the guy I want them to draft. Simple as that. And if that means that they have to trade up, then do what you got to do. If that means they can move back, do what you got to do. My whole thing is just make sure you get the guys you need to get to make our team a competitive team.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, that's for sure. As long as I'm going to add one caveat to what you just said there, you got to go after the guy that you want, but let's not trade up for another Deion Jordan type of thing. We need to get a guy that actually can play in the NFL. That would be my only thing. Go after the guys you want, but you've got to have a plan to make it work once you make those choices.
Well, I'm sure Jeff Ireland, I hate even mentioning that name, but I'm sure he had a plan. I'm sure he thought that Deion Jordan was going to be worth the investment, which they gave up a second-round pick. It wasn't the end of the world, but the point is, I don't think you do that without thinking you're going to have success, right, doing it. It just doesn't always work out, These guys come in and they get a little bit of money in their pockets and shit goes to their head, and that's that.
That's true.
You just never know. You never really know until you do know. And, it's like I said to somebody else, draft picks hit about a 50% rate. So if they have to trade a couple of picks to move up, what are they really losing? You know what I mean? If you're playing the percentages, what are they really losing? And, if you're telling me he's going to be a franchise QB and I got to give up a couple of draft picks, sign me up.
That's the way I see it. And also, we're not going to even know if you have to move up in the draft or anything until the draft starts itself, until Cincy's on the clock. We don't know. Do you have to move to 2? Do you have to move to 3? Can you stay at 5? None of that's going to unfold until they start that draft.
Well, the advantage Miami has is the assets. So I don't think Detroit or Washington or anybody else is going to make a deal without talking to Miami first, because Miami has more to give.
That's it. That's why we have all those draft picks.
Right.
We got those draft picks so that we can move around the board if we have to.
Right. So I don't think he'll get stolen out from under them, unless they just decide that the cost is too much to go after him, or something turns them off in his medicals or something like that. So anyway, that's how I see it. We'll see, a long time to go between now and April. Right now, the thing to look at is how his medicals come back next week, and getting a word as to whether or not he'll be ready to go in April when they have his pro day. And if he can go in April, then the teams will get to look at him, and then the competition should heat up if everything goes well.
Yeah, it could get to be quite a battle royal if he's all healthy and good to go.
Well, I think there'll be at least a couple of teams interested, aside from ourselves. We'll see. So you guys had a chance to look at the wide receivers. I know a lot of people think we don't need a receiver, and I get the thinking, but I don't necessarily agree with it, and I'll tell you why. Williams was very, enticing last year. We thought he was going to have a great season, and he had a pretty nice start, but then he got hurt. And the thing is, he hurt his ACL, and when you tear those ACLs, sometimes it takes more than a year to come back. McMillan took 2 years, so these things happen, and we'll just have to see how he heals. And aside from that, you've got Wilson, who is quite possibly going to be a cap casualty. So if you take both of those guys out of the equation, our receiving core doesn't look quite as strong. So I think there is a possibility that we may very well need a receiver just to be safe. But you guys tell me, how'd you feel looking at it, Kirk?
Well, let's talk about first who we think they're going to keep.
Okay.
They got a list. I know they're going to keep Parker.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, depending on Williams, they're going to keep Williams.
Yeah.
And once you get to Wilson, like you said, with that cap saving, if he doesn't restructure that contract, I don't see how they keep him.
Yeah, I don't.
So
either.
you have Parker, Williams. I think they would keep Grant because even if they got rid of Grant, it's not really that big a savings. So Grant, we would save $1.9 million if we cut him. So what am I talking about?
You're keeping Grant for his special teams play.
Right. Yeah. So I'm looking right there, and I'm seeing 3 receivers out of the 6 from last year that we're definitely going to keep, I would think.
Well, you've got Isaiah Ford and Hearns that are still under contract, I believe.
They have a couple of other young guys too.
Right.
Now, if they were to cut Hearns, we'd only have $866,000 worth of dead money, but we would save $2 million, and his contract's only $2.9 million.
Yeah, it's peanuts for what they're dealing with.
Yeah, but we also got those other 2 guys, Ricardo Lewis and Gary Jennings, who we picked up from off waivers from Seattle. And the funny thing about him is he got injured when Jakeem Grant ran that touchdown back against Buffalo, that kickoff. He injured his shoulder somehow in the celebration. But we still have that kid. He's only 22. He was drafted in 2019 in round 4. And he had pretty decent stats at West Virginia. His senior year, he had 54 receptions, almost 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. So there's a kid we get to take a look at that's relatively cheap. So we have a couple of kids that might upturn the bottom of our other 3 receivers. Right. I do like Isaiah Ford, by the way, though, Jim. I like him a lot. He came on pretty strong towards the end. He was really starting to get it. Yeah,
early on he wasn't very impressive, but towards the end of the season he made a lot of key receptions, so that was big. So who do you think? He's a
decent sized receiver too. He's 6'2", 194.
So
he's right there with Parker at 6'3". So he's a big receiver with good hands. So do we really want to go out and go into free agency and look at some of these other guys and spend the money when we could probably just add to it just by drafting somebody?
Well, the whole catch-22 with the free agency thing is if it's somebody that's an obvious improvement, it's going to cost, the sky's the limit for receivers. And I don't see us splurging on the wide receiver position right now. I see us maybe bringing another body in, kind of like the Hearns deal a couple of years ago, I guess. But I don't see us being big spenders. I'd love to see a guy like A.J. Green come in. I mean, who wouldn't want him on your team if he's healthy? But he hasn't played a snap since 2018, and projections are still out there that he's going to get $16-17 million a year for 3 or 4 years. And he's 32 years old. I just don't see us making those kind of deals. I mean, it'd be fantastic.
We're not doing that.
Yeah, I know. It'd be great to see Parker and Green out there, but that's just not going to happen. There was one guy that I am kind of, interested in, would be good to see on the team is Brashad Perryman. He's 26 years old. He's going into his 6th season. He's another big receiver. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, averages 16.5 yards a catch. Last year he averaged almost 18 yards per catch. So, there's a guy that probably won't break the bank. He was drafted by the Ravens in the first round back in 2015. He's got 4.3 speed in the 40. So, hey, if you can bring a guy like that in for a 2-year deal, 13 or 15 million, then I say go for it, and move Wilson's money over to that and see how he plugs in.
You might be able to get that guy too, because he didn't do well in Baltimore, and he played that 1 year last year where he actually had a good season.
Yeah, well,
so he might come a little bit, at a reasonable price.
This is why I spent a little time looking at him, because he only had like a good half of a season, really, where he really came on strong, but he hasn't been given much of a chance, and he was He was never a receiver that got a lot of targets, really. But any of these receivers that are any good are either getting tagged, re-signed, or they're going to get huge money. We can go shopping for Amari Cooper if you want, but that's going to cost you $20 million a year for 4 or 5 years. It's just not going to happen. So, looking at free agents, you've got to put the right kind of glasses on so that you can filter out the highs and the lows and try to find a guy that's affordable and can contribute to the team. And, Perryman is in that area there.
Do you think Perryman's an upgrade over any of the other guys we have?
Well, that's the thing. Wilson I've always liked, but he can't stay on the field and he's getting a lot of money. So, I think this is probably an upgrade from Wilson because he's going to be available more. Is he as good potentially, as elusive? I'm not sure on that, but he is faster than Wilson. Hearns, I think Perryman is an upgrade from. I don't see much. I've never seen much in that Hearns signing, but everybody says he's a great zone coverage receiver and all that, but I just didn't see the big return there.
He's a possession receiver. He's not, he's not going to be a big touchdown guy.
Right. So, this is just a move that is something that I would consider looking at our roster and what I would be willing to pay a guy, So, he's fairly young. He's got some speed, and he's, it's a guy that.
Well, you're more generous than me. I wouldn't pay him that much.
This is my inflated ideas for the current NFL. We're talking about paying quarterbacks that are mediocre $35 million a season. So, it's a trickle down thing. So. Yep.
No, I hear you. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I'm saying I wouldn't.
Right.
I just wouldn't pay him that much. You got to show me something first before you get that kind of money. And I don't know that he's proven himself to that point. But, he may get it. But there are teams out there, I'm sure, that'll pay it. But I wouldn't be one of them if it were my call. I don't know that I would keep Wilson if it was my call. That's not to say I don't like Wilson as a player. I do. But like you said, he doesn't stay on the field. And, availability is an ability. We like to see the guys line up, and we finally saw that from Parker, and you saw what he was able to do. So
I think we're all still shocked by that, by the way.
A little bit. Yes and no. We all knew he had the ability to do it, but what I saw from Parker last year, getting off track for a second, was desire. There was a physical presence to Devontae Parker last year that I had not really seen before. Hello, everyone. This is Mike from the Finfans podcast, interrupting the show just for a moment. I wanted to ask you guys a question. If I had a group of Dolphin fans that you could join that spent time on social media discussing the team in a friendly, professional manner, is that something that would interest you? If it is, you'll want to come join our group. It's called Miami Dolphins #1. That's #1. And not only do you get civil conversation and some great discussion, but there's also contests and games that we play. We have a suicide pool that runs throughout the season. We also have a weekly picks contest that runs throughout the season. There are prizes associated with those. We have random giveaways and raffles. There are prizes associated with those. We ask you to come check it out. You can sign up for the page between now and April 1st for free, just to sample the page. Beginning April 1st, there is going to be changes. Will then be a subscription group. It will cost $30 per year to join, and that will include all the activities that I just mentioned, plus anything else we can come up with. So check it out. Come over there. Mention you're a podcast listener, and I'll make sure you get in without any problems. And we look forward to seeing you. Let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, he did seem focused, and my comment has always been, will the light bulb go on? Those previous years, he just didn't seem that focused, or like you said, Mike, and
not that aggressive. He was aggressive.
Last year, he wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very visible to see. And it was fun to see. He was enjoyable to watch. If you can get a guy like that, then by all means do it. But you don't want pay too much money for a guy who's not going to give you, that kind of production.
Yeah, luckily, he was already ours.
Yes, and very reasonably so. $5 million, I think they paid him. He produced beyond his contract.
Well, looking at these guys, you said I don't really see we're going to spend a lot of money on it. But if you did, like let a Wilson go because he wouldn't restructure, and you get that $9.5 million back to you, we can always be using that in other areas. So it doesn't hurt to get that money. I do like Wilson, and I think that if he's smart and he wants to stay, then he will work out something. But that'll all play out.
They have
shortly.
to offer him that opportunity first. We'll have to see if they want him back.
He saved some face, by the way. It looked like he started to get over that injury that he had, and he started to get some of his old self back.
Yes,
which was nice to see. So if that continues, it could be a win-win for both sides.
Yeah. I think so. I would not be opposed to them bringing it back, but certainly not at over $9 million.
Yeah, the other thing is that's an Adam Gase signing, and whether Greer was involved in that much or not, I don't know. But
of course he was.
Yeah, the sense I get is he's on his way out unless they renegotiate that contract.
Yeah, and what we don't know is how he would fit into Chan Gailey's plans. You know what I mean? How would Chan Gailey use Albert Wilson? We don't know. We don't know much about what Gailey plans to do with our offense. We can base it on what he did with the Jets in 2015 and that type of stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be doing the same thing with the personnel that we have. So we'll just have to see.
Well, we can always trade Wilson for Robbie Anderson since he was in Chan Gailey. Bring him back over here with Fitzy. Similar
players. Anderson is probably a little faster, but they're similar players.
Yeah,
he's projected to get a lot of money, though. Anderson, I thought I saw he's getting projected to do a 4-year deal for $12 million a season.
Now, like I said, anybody that's any good is getting huge contracts, and some of them.
He would be an upgrade from Wilson, I think, right?
I would say so. Yes.
Yeah. So I could see that compared to giving Wilson over 9. But I don't expect them to do that. I don't think they would even consider doing that. I really believe they may address receiver in the draft, and I'm not saying in the first round, but I think they would probably consider it in the second or third round. But I don't think it's going to be a high priority. He would have to be the best player on the board at the time that they pick, and somebody that they really like as a receiver for them to do it. I really think the focus early in the draft is going to be both lines and possibly a cornerback.
You don't agree with what I put out there today? Tua, Swift, and Ruggs?
Yeah, that whole Ruggs thing was it's still I just don't see us going that type of position that early in the draft. I mean, who does
you never know, and I say that with a straight face. You just never know because a lot depends on how your board plays out and how the draft itself plays out, and we have no way to predict that or know where they're prioritizing, what grades they have on specific players and stuff like that. So we got to let that all happen and take place. But if you just look at Miami's roster, you would think that wide receiver wouldn't be at the top of the list of needs, although they probably can use a little bit of shoring up in that area. Now, whether they choose to do that through free agency, through the draft, through street free agents later, who knows?
That could be our triplets.
Yeah. All right. So we looked at the quarterbacks. We looked at wide receivers. I don't think we really feel that Miami's going to be a big player in either area, but it wouldn't shock me if they signed a receiver for reasons I already mentioned.
We could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and try to lure Taysom Hill from the Saints over to the Dolphins, and then he can play quarterback, running back, wide receiver, whatever we need.
Well, I don't know, what scares me about the Saints is Jeff Ireland's over there. I don't think I want to do anything with him.
I hear you.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what our priorities are. I mean, we all know offensive line. That's a given. But once you get past the lines, I wonder, obviously I think we need a running back. I think we need a cornerback, obviously. Both lines need work, but, do they think about receiver? Do they think about tight end? Are these going to be areas that they feel need to be addressed still? It'll be interesting to see.
I think definitely running back.
Well, I think so.
And
too.
I'd like to see them get one of those star running backs. So it's been a while since we had a star running back. I mean, you don't know how they're going to work out, but just to get one of those big name backs, like the top three, one of the top three backs, it'd just be nice to.
Tennessee had a real good back. Did they get to the Super Bowl?
No, they didn't get to the Super Bowl.
They almost did.
They almost did. I'm not talking about almost. I'm talking about did they get there. My theory with running backs, and the reason I phrase it that way, is because I don't think that a great running back brings you to championships. And I look back at Walter Payton, and he did win a Super Bowl with the 85 Bears, but we know it wasn't because of Walter Payton at that stage of his career. It was because of the defense. You look at Eric Dickerson and O.J. Simpson, and you look at a bunch of the better name running backs throughout the course of history, and very few of them won Super Bowls. So, I'm not a big believer in spending high assets on a running back. Not to say you don't need a good running back, but I don't think you need a great one.
I don't know. I think running games and defense.
Oh, yeah. You look at, let's go way back for a minute, okay? The 72 Dolphins lived on their running game, but they had a three-headed backfield. They had Zonka, they had Kick, they had Morris. They didn't have that O.J. Simpson type back. You follow me? So I do think you have to have a decent running game. Don't take me wrong, but I just don't know that you need that elite running back, and that's really what I'm saying. You do have to be able to run, but I don't think you need the elite back to do so.
You just need a good back.
You need a good back, and you need a better offensive line.
Yeah, right, I tend to agree with you, Mike. It's just been so long since we've been able to watch a really good running back out there. When we had Ricky Williams, that was just fun to watch.
Ricky was tremendous.
And, it didn't get us to the Super Bowl.
We didn't win a Super Bowl.
I understand exactly what you're saying, Mike, and I, like I say, I tend to agree. But like Kirk said, boy, it would be really nice to see a stud running back busting some plays now and then. It's just something that we haven't had much of for a long time. And it could be that our O-line hasn't been able to open a hole, but, it would just be good to have a stud running back there for sure.
Ajaya had a nice season for us, but
he did.
Trust me when I tell you, the elite backs don't win a lot of Super Bowls. How'd Gurley do? I guess he won one with the Rams, right?
Yep.
But did he carry them there, or was it a passing game?
Yeah, it was mainly passing. And current teams, it's if you don't have a guy that can sling the football around. Look at our last Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes got it done, and Garoppolo didn't. So the Chiefs won. Until you go back to the Dallas Cowboys with that team that they had, Emmitt Smith just dominated, but it was because of the offensive line and Michael Irvin and all of those pieces.
Yeah, they were just a solid team.
There was. Yeah. We talk about the best 53 wins, and that was a damn solid 53 they had. So, that was the last great running back that had a lot of success with Super Bowls to me. Before that, after that, it's all gunslinger time.
Yeah, well, as I said, as you go back through history, there aren't a lot of them that have carried their team to a Super Bowl. And through a Super Bowl, it's usually been on the back of a great defense or a quarterback or what have you. Now, there's exceptions. There's a few here and there. But if you consider how many years we've been playing football, there aren't that many.
Well, it's been quite some years that we've been playing football without a good running back.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
We should rephrase that. It's been quite some time since we've had either the running back or the gunslinger. So, hopefully the future is going to get brighter for us.
Well, it has to, doesn't it?
I would hope so. Yeah,
it has to. I mean, really, it has to. We got to hope these guys are the right guys to turn it around, like we've been saying for the last 5 or 6 regimes, Well, that's all I got for this week, guys. You got anything else you want to add?
No, I think everybody just needs to relax and see what free agency brings, and the draft will get here soon enough.
Well, yeah. But before free agency happens, we have another show to do next week.
This is true.
We'll talk a little bit about some of the other positions that we didn't speak about tonight on offense. And Kirk, you got anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just remember, Finfans, when we're on the Dolphin page, everybody has an opinion.
And all yours is right.
Yeah, and mine are always right.
Uh-huh.
That's why I keep them to myself most of the time. No, none of us know what's going to happen.
Of course not.
You know, mock drafts, all that kind of stuff. Nobody has a clue what's going to happen except for the people that are going to be involved in it. So it's really nice.
Somebody told me today, because Tua is scheduled to go fifth to us, you know, that since all the mocks predict that, nobody in front of us could possibly make a trade and allow somebody else to take him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's just enjoy each other's conversation and opinions, and we're all in this together, and let's hope for the best.
That's it. It's like you said, we don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody's going to know until those picks are turned in. That's the way it works. If you look at mock drafts after these drafts take place, you realize that every year. So, with that said, guys, thanks for joining me tonight.
My pleasure.
Pleasure as always.
And everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week. Until then, fins up.
Fins up, Dolphins.
Fins up.
All right, so that's our show for this week. I just want to remind everyone that the Finfans podcast is part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.